Hi there, my name is Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel Bandy's Books, and today we are here to talk August TBR. So August, what have I got picked out? I have been really enjoying mood reading. Usually in the summer, I give myself a break from curating specific genres or thematic TBRs, and I just let myself mood read for a couple months. In July, I mostly mood read new releases and books that were new to me that I was super excited to get to. And so in August, I thought I would allow myself to mood read as well. But this time, instead of focusing on new releases, I thought I would focus on some of the oldest books on my TBR shelves. So what you're gonna see in my TBR this month is books that I've talked about before, books that have shown up on several TBRs before and somehow still have not been read. And I'm gonna make a huge effort this month to knock out quite a few of them and see if I can't move some of these books off of my bookshelf. Let's be real. While the bookshelves look all nice and pretty behind me and they're super organized, I am running out of space quickly. And if I want to keep being able to buy new books and make space for new releases, then I have to give up some of the older ones. And so if you're new to this channel, the way that that works here is that if I rate a book 4 to 5 stars and it's a nice hardcover copy, then I can keep it. And if not, it has to go. And so that is how I move books off of my shelf. But I haven't been doing the best job of reading the books that are actually on my shelves because I get distracted by things like NetGalley and audiobooks on Libby. And so this month is focused on moving some of those long-standing books. I have a wide variety of authors, a big selection of genres, everything that you could want for mood reading. And so I'm really excited to dive into it. Before we get into the actual books though, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up down below and let me know, how do you organize what you're keeping on your bookshelves? Do you have big bookshelves? Are you somebody that just likes to have like a Kindle or a Kobo? And then if you do have physical shelves, like how do you decide what stays and what goes? What are we reading? I have, as per usual, way too many books picked out. And again, that is because of that mood reading. I like to have a wide selection when I am allowing myself to mood read. So that way I can pick the things that sound interesting and it kind of helps me to actually move more books. So let's go ahead and jump right into the books. The first that I have is Dear Edward by Nopalitano. So I have never read Napolitano's writing before, despite hearing really good feedback about several of her books. In particular, I have had several people tell me that this is one of their all-time favorite books. We have a young man who survives a plane crash, and I think this book kind of reflects on his experiences after, this incident. I've heard this is really emotionally deep and that it's a tearjerker. I am really looking forward to reading this. Oddly, I don't know if I've ever read a book that reflects on like a plane crash and the aftermath of it. So I'm excited to get into this. Then I have Half Sick of Shadows by Laura Sebastian. So this is a retelling of the Knights of the Round Table. I believe that this is told through the perspective of Elaine, who is sort of a seer and sees what's going to come to pass with her friends. And then I have The Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton. So this is a story about a singer and a producer and them getting together to make magic. I haven't actually heard that much about this book, but it sounds really interesting. Kind of is giving me like Daisy Jones and the Six vibes, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a really good read. Then I have a book that has been on my TBR at least 4 or 5 times. It was most recently featured on a TBR in June, and somehow, once again, I did not get to it. That's The Knockout Queen by Rufi Thorpe. So this book follows a character named Bunny and her friend Michael. So Bunny is struggling to fit in. She's over 6 feet tall, and though she dreams of being an athlete, things just aren't always easy for her. Michael has struggles of his own. At school, he presents as straight, but at home, he is coming to terms with his gay identity. This sounds like it could be a really good book. I have yet to read anything by Thorpe, but she released a new book this year called Margot's Got Money Troubles, and I've been seeing really great reviews of that one as well. So I'm hoping to finally maybe knock this off my bookshelf. Then another book that has been on my shelves for the longest time and has been featured on TBRs several times over, but I somehow seem to never get to it, is Memorial by Bryan Washington. This follows a young gay couple as they struggle with their relationship. They're kind of coming to terms with the fact that it might be ending and that they're maybe in a phase where they feel more like roommates than lovers. This has received really good reviews. It's one that sounds super interesting to me, and for whatever reason I just seem to keep putting it on TBRs and not actually getting to it, so I'm hoping to prioritize this month. And then I have Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is another book that's showed up on my TBR maybe like 2 times. It's been around for quite a long time. This is about a character named Grace who is a PhD in astronomy And she goes on a girls' trip to Las Vegas, gets drunk, and ends up marrying a woman that she does not know. Sounds like a really fun read, really interesting read. I live here in Vegas, so I'm always even more appreciative when books are set here and people are doing crazy things. So I'm looking forward to getting into this. After that, another book that's been on my shelf for a really long time is Afterparties by Anthony Veasna So. This is a short story collection that was written prior to Veasna So's death. Unfortunately, he's since passed away. And these stories within this book feature primarily characters who are Cambodian American, children of refugees, and set in California. I grew up in California in a largely immigrant community, and so I imagine that a lot of things that take place in this book will be very familiar to me. I have heard rave reviews about this writing, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. I have been on a short story kick for like the last year and a half. I've just read so many good short story collections, so I'm hoping that this is going to be another excellent short story collection. And then we're going to move over to nonfiction, specifically a memoir that's been on my shelves for quite a while, and that is Beautiful Country by Qian Wang. This is a book that I hear nothing but rave reviews about. I love the cover. I think it's so interesting the way it's been designed. This is about Qian's immigration story. She moves to the United States in 1994. Her parents are here illegally. They went from being well-respected professionals in China to being illegal immigrants here in the United States. And so her whole entire life changes. And this is about that process. This sounds really interesting, and as I've said, I've heard really good reviews of this book. And then I have a book on this TBR that's a little bit newer to me in terms of having purchased it recently. It's a book that I've been aware of for a very long time. It's a title I'm familiar with, an author that I've read previously, but I only recently picked up this book. And that is 10 minutes and 38 seconds in the Strange World by Elif Shafak. So I have heard that this is one of those like books that just breaks your heart and crushes your soul and grinds you into little teardrop paste on the ground. This is about a young woman who is murdered, and the book covers her last few minutes as she lies dying in a dumpster. It sounds like a terribly sad book, but also one that could be really poignant and beautiful if it's handled correctly. I love Shafak's writing, so I am fully confident that this is going to be a fantastic read. And now we're going to move into a little bit strange, and that's All's Well by Mona Awad. It's funny because this is the first book that I ever bought by Mona Awad, and somehow it's the only one that I haven't read. I purchased Bunny after this, and I've read it. My mom gifted me Rouge at Christmas time. I've read it. Somehow, even though I've had this longer than both of those books, it's still sitting on my shelves. From what I remember of this book, our main character is the director of a college theater program, and she becomes determined to put on the play All's Well. And I think there's like some disastrous consequences that happen. I haven't heard that many reviews of this book, oddly. I feel like when I hear talk about Mona Awad, often it's in relationship to Bunny. So I'm curious to see how this goes. I really enjoyed Bunny, and Rouge for me was just so I'm curious to see if I really enjoy this or not. Then a book that has shown up probably on 3 or 4 TBRs is Things We Lost to the Water by Eric Nguyen. This is about a Vietnamese family who moves to New Orleans. They are dealing with the fact that their father has been left behind and will likely never join the family. One of the family members is dealing with their own sexuality, and then there is a flood that happens. I've heard mixed reviews of this book, but it sounds really interesting to me, and I'm looking forward to getting into it. And then a book that's slightly newer than some of the others, and that's Banyan Moon by Thao. So this is a debut novel that follows 3 generations of Vietnamese women, and I've heard pretty good things about this. I want to say that Book of the Month released this last year, which was when I picked this up. I think I've featured this on 2 TBRs so far, so it's time to finally get to it. And then another book that has been featured on several of my TBRs previously and somehow always seems to keep getting pushed back, and that's The Leavers by Lisa Ko. This is a story about a mother and son. The mother goes missing, and her 11-year-old son is eventually adopted out by a well-meaning white couple. And the son is struggling with the adoptive family's desires for him to assimilate with white culture and his memories of his mother and the community that he left when he was adopted. I've heard that this is fantastic. This was a PEN America winner, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything bad about this. I'm really looking forward to getting into it. Then I have a book that I originally received from Aardvark. they reached out to me like 2 years ago to send me a free box so that I could try them out and see if I might be interested in subscribing. And they picked 3 books for me. They curated like the best book box ever. You can see this video up here if you'd like. And one of the books that they sent was The Dream Builders by Oindrila Mukherjee. This is about a character named Manika who heads home to India to mourn the loss of her mother. It sounds like she has maybe a strained relationship with her father, and it takes some tragic events to set her world into order. This, I haven't actually heard that many things about it, but look how fantastic the cover of this is. I think it's just so pretty, and it sounds like a really interesting read. If you've read this one, please let me know in the comments what you thought of it. Then one of the oldest books on this TBR is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. So this is a book that I found in a little free library way back when and kind of recalled wanting to read. I've read Monk Kidd's writing before and really enjoyed it, and this one sounds like a pretty interesting book. This is set in 1960s South Carolina. We have a young girl named Lily, who's reeling from the death of her mother. She has someone who's acting as a stand-in mother, and when the stand-in mother gets in trouble in town, Lily comes up with a plan to spring them both, and they take off to a different town. In this new town, they're taken in by an eccentric trio of sisters who are beekeepers, and Lily is introduced to the mesmerizing world of bees and honey. Then my next 2 books I think are technically both classics, but they're new to me. I only recently picked them up in June when I did this awesome birthday book shopping trip in San Diego. So the first one is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This is the first book in a series. This is classic African literature. This says it's a classical narrative about Africa's cataclysmic encounter with Europe as it establishes a colonial presence on the continent, told through the fictional experiences of Okonkwo, a wealthy and fearless Igbo warrior of Umofia in the late 1800s. Things Fall Apart explores one man's futile resistance to the devaluating of his Igbo traditions by British political and religious forces, and his despair as his community capitulates to the powerful new order. So this sounds fantastic. I've been hearing really good things about this recently. I'm very excited that it has come onto my radar. I'm looking forward to getting into this. I'm sure that I'm going to devour this first book, and then I'll be looking for book 2 and book 3. The next book was one that was recommended to me by a bookseller at Warwick's of La Jolla, and this I think falls into the classic fiction genre, and that is The Awakening and Selected Stories by Kate Chopin. So this is a book that was published, I want to say, in the early 1900s. So it was actually published 1899 to be specific, and it's become a literary landmark. With an effortless, sure-handed artistry, Kate Chopin tells the story of Edna Pontellier, a young mother and model wife whose romantic involvement with a young man at a seaside resort allows her for the first time to imagine a freer life. This sounds really good. The bookseller that recommended it said that this book was way ahead of its times, that it is still really relevant today, and that it is fantastic writing. I mentioned to her that I'm not super up to date on classics. It's not an area of reading that I'm very familiar with. And so she thought this was a great place to jump in. And then I have The Songs of Willow Frost by Jamie Ford. So I've read The Many Daughters of Afong Moy and really enjoyed it. And I was really interested in getting into more of Ford's writing. I happened to come across this at a library sale a couple years back, and it's been sitting on my shelves for the longest time. It's a book that I keep meaning to get to. I posted a picture of this on Instagram a few months back, and he so kindly commented and said, I really hope that you enjoy this. This is a little bit of a darker book compared to some of my current writing, but it's one that holds a really special place in my heart. And so I'm really looking forward to finally getting into this. After that, I have Game Changer by Neal Shusterman. So Shusterman has written so many books. I so far have only read his Arc of Scythe series, all 4 books in it, and I loved it. I know that it's young adult, but it was a young adult series that was so compelling and interesting. He created such a fantastic world, and I thought he did a really good job of developing it. And after gobbling up all 4 books in that series, I wanted to explore some of his other writing. So this is a book that I've had on my shelf for probably 3 years at this point. And so I was like, why not knock this one off? So hopefully this is going to be a really good read. And then I have Jollof Rice and Other Revolutions, a novel in interlocking stories by Omolola, Ijeoma, Ogunyemi. So this is a series of stories that explores Nigeria's past, present, and future through the eyes of several women. This is a book that was released fairly recently. It's one that I've been eyeballing for a long time, and I recently picked up from a local bookstore here in Las Vegas. I'm super excited to get into it. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I have been crushing it with the short story collections lately. So many fantastic short story collections. So I really hope this one lives up to the hype for me. And then I have a couple books by Ruta Sepetys. I have Out of the Easy and Salt to the Sea. I've heard fantastic things about this author, and I've had both of these books on my TBR shelves for the longest time. I don't know why I don't get to them, but they both sound really interesting. They have that kind of historical mystery element going on. Hoping to at least knock one out, but hopefully both of them this month. Another author that shows up twice on this month's TBR is Shea Earnshaw. I have A Wilderness of Stars and The Wicked Deep. I have previously read Earnshaw's A History of Wild Places, and I really enjoyed that one. So I ended up picking up A Wilderness of Stars through Book of the Month at some point. And this one I found, I want to say, at a local library, and it was honestly kind of a cover buy because look how pretty this cover is. I don't know much about either book, but I'm really looking forward to getting into it. If the writing in these is anything like A History of Wild Places, I'm sure that I'm going to really enjoy them. And then I have Other Birds by Sarah Addison Allen. This is a book that I hear a lot of fantastic things about. It was a very popular feature by Book of the Month last year. It's a book I've been meaning to read for a really long time. This is a book about a character named Zoe who moves to a place called Delawisp to settle some affairs after her mother's death. When one of her mother's neighbors dies mysteriously, Zoe is then thrust into the mystery of Delawisp. Honestly, this is the type of story that I feel like I've heard before, but I've heard so many rave reviews about this that I want to still give it a chance. Then I have Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis. So this is the first book in a series, and this book is set in 2007. Humans have made contact with intelligent life in outer space. And there is a cover-up, and I think our main character is going to blow the whistle on that cover-up and offer herself up as a translator between the alien race and humanity. I haven't really heard that much about this particular book, but I got interested in this because Ellis was actually at one of my local libraries doing a book signing last year, and this was a book that I had on my shelf because I think I picked it up at a library sale, and it kind of re-sparked my interest in it, and somehow I still haven't gotten to it, so hopefully this is the month for it. And then continuing on with that science fiction theme, we have The Last Animal by Ramona Acebel. So this is about a single mother and her two teenage daughters who make an accidental discovery of a woolly mammoth in some ice. This sets off a series of surprising events leading mother and her daughters to go rogue. I haven't heard much about this book either, but the cover of it is so cute, and this sounds like such a fantastic concept. I love the idea of teenage girls stumbling across like these ancient remains of a woolly mammoth. I'm really looking forward to getting into this. And then another book that was recently featured on my TBR in June was As Bright as Heaven by Susan Meisner. So this was a book that I meant to get to in June, and unfortunately I just ran out of time. This is a time period that I'm not super familiar with and a subject that I'm not super familiar with. I read a ton of historical fiction from a lot of different decades, and so it's always exciting for me when I find like a particular moment in time that I'm not that well versed in. This book is set in 1918 Philadelphia, right around the time that the Spanish flu becomes present in the United States. Having recently survived a pandemic, I'm particularly interested in this book because I'm curious what it was like to go through a pandemic in the early 1900s. And then for a bit of nonfiction, I have The Quiet Zone, Unraveling the Mystery of a Town Suspended in Silence by Stephen Kersey. So this is a book that Oz picked out for me like way back when I first started this channel. We did a like book shopping video where we went to Barnes and Nobles and he picked out 5 books for me. And this was the nonfiction pick that he picked up. This sounds like such an interesting subject, and I kind of honestly just forgot that this was on my shelf. I've been making a bigger push to read more nonfiction, and so recently I was like scanning the shelves and organizing my books and figuring out what nonfiction reads I had, and I was reminded that this was on my shelf. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. I actually have no idea where this town is. I think it's here in the States, but like I don't know where in the States or what's going on, why it's like radio silent, all of that. I'm very interested in this. And my final physical book on this month's TBR is Artemis by Andy Weir. So this is a book that I hear not the best reviews of. I hear rave reviews of The Martian and Project Hail Mary and how fantastic both of those are. But when it comes to Artemis, a lot of people are like, it's not that good. I still want to read this for some reason. I actually started it a long time ago and I got like 50 pages in and put it down for some reason. I didn't put it down because it was bad. I remember actually really liking where the story was going at that point, and I think I just got distracted. So I really want to give this a fair shot and get further in and see if this book is worth reading or not. hopefully I'll enjoy it more than other people do. So those are all the books that are on my physical TBR this month. As you can see, that's quite a lot of reading. I don't anticipate getting to every single one of these books, but that gives me the ability to mood read whatever sounds good to me during the month. In addition to this, I also have my NetGalley shelf, which is honestly out of control at this point. So I'm hoping to get to at least 5 books from my NetGalley shelf this month. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of the books that I could potentially read. Just know that if some new releases pop up in this mix, that's because they probably came from my NetGalley shelf. That's everything that I have planned for the month of August. Hopefully you found this video interesting. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up, comment down below, and let me know, are you like I am? Do you pick out just an insane amount of books for your TBRs? How do you decide what you're gonna read throughout the month? Do you mood read? Do you have a specific TBR? Do you play TBR games? Do you let your friends pick out your books? Tell me all of the things, or tell me like what you're most looking forward to reading in August. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell so you never miss a video, and that way we can see each other again soon. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.